We got this Lincoln Navigator here. I don't know what year it is because all the stickers have been ripped off of the door jambs. I don't care to try to decipher the VIN or to put my scanner on it to get that information. It's just not that important. Anyway, you can see we got a box here from Rock Auto, and you would think we ordered a lot of crap, right? But nope, that's what we ordered. And really what's inside of here is a positive battery cable, okay? And they sent it in this big old stupid box. Why? Because America. Anyway, you can see it's a OEM Ford part. And a few days ago, I had to pull the battery out this thing and put it on the trickle charger because the owner didn't drive it for like 2 months. So of course the battery was dead, and that's when I noticed that this battery terminal is just very loose. You can't really tighten it. Everything's rusted in place. So I told him this needs to get replaced, and in order to replace this, you got to replace the whole harness. So that's what we're gonna go ahead and do today. And here was our monster of a cable, and I just realized that it's also the ground side. I didn't know that. I didn't know it was everything in one harness. Well, it's good. Everything's getting replaced now. Let's go ahead and start tearing the old one out. Looks like a bunch of crap has to come off. This is gonna suck. All right, so I already started putting everything back together because this harness is not matching up. The more I dig into it, I could see the differences, and it just isn't gonna work, guys. So now I have to start doing some investigating here because the owner told me it's a 2014. We're about to find out, guys. Oh, well, maybe if I turn the key on, the suspense, right? 2004. I don't know what year it is. Just not that important. Just not that important. Just not that important. Now, surely the owner cannot be that far off, right? Here's the thing. Well, he only talks Spanish, okay? My Spanish is kind of limited. So I think when he told me 2014 or 2004 in Spanish, I think I took it as 2014. So yeah, I'm gonna call him and ask him, hey, what year is your truck? And I guarantee you he's gonna say 04, and that's where I made the mistake. Yeah, so it turns out if you go on Rock Auto and you put in the actual correct information, you could actually get just the power cable alone, and it comes with the battery terminal, of course. But it's none of all of this crap right here. It's really just this red wire going down to what I'm assuming is a starter, and that's it. Of course, it's not combined with a negative cable like this one is. To unravel all this stuff would be a freaking nightmare. You know, the thing to do here is to chop off the ends. Easiest thing, honestly. Like, chop off the positive cable right here, chop off whatever is sticking out the bottom, and then run the new wire from here going down, and you know, holding it as close as possible to the existing wire, and call it a day. But that harness was $105. This right here, less than 25. So it's a few days later, we are back with this Navigator, and I returned the other one back to Rock Auto, and we got this one. This is the correct one. It's for a 2004 Navigator, not a 2014. As you can see, it's drastically different. It's really just a power cable. And of course, the cheap, easy way would be to like chop this off, right, and then spread the terminal and pretty much do the same thing on this side and just recrimp it, make life easy, right? But we got a new part. We might as well try to put it on the correct way, the whole entire wire. So let's give it a go. All right, so here it goes right here, the complete power harness and even the ground side. So that gets disconnected from the starter, and the ground strap for the starter. This is the ground for the chassis somewhere. Here is just a connector, not sure what it's for. And of course, our battery positive, battery negative, and ground to the cowl. So yeah, real pain in the butt to get this thing out. You know, if this was someone else, they would do exactly what I said at the beginning. Just hack this thing, cut that off, crimp the new one on, and call it a day. 1,000 times easier, right? But let's go ahead and do this right. It's what the customer wants. All right, so I got the power cable pulled out about halfway out of the harness, and I'm just cutting the electrical tape as I go along. But right here at the end, right where the convoluted tubing stops, you can see the power cable. We have about 8 inches of stick out. So when we put the new one in, we got to make sure we put it exactly in the right place, because all these things have to fall in the exact right place. Because you see, you know, like this bracket has to bolt up, this has to land in its spot, And I found out that this, or I just realized this connector right here is actually for the starter solenoid right here, to send a command to the starter to actually crank over the engine. So that's what that connector is for. And there we have it, guys. This thing is pretty much ready to go back on the car, and it'll be all set. So let me go ahead and slap this on. It's gonna be a pain in the butt, of course. I'm underneath the truck, and as you can see, I got all the wires connected. Got the ground strap connected back there, got the S terminal and the power wire connected to the starter, and here goes that bracket right here. All that's bolted up. And now, since I got everything tightened up, I'm gonna go ahead and spray the terminals on the starter with some CRC, just to kind of protect them from corrosion. All right, so that right there looks good enough. And there's a little plastic cover. It should go right on, no issues at all. And there it goes. So everything looks really good down here. Let's go up top now. So up top here, I got the connector for the S terminal to the starter connected. The ground that goes to like the wheel well, that's bolted down. The ground for the cowl back here, that's in place. You can see the power side battery post is already connected, and I already went ahead and cleaned off these old cables that were here just to make them look nice and clean. Now this is not the nut that was on here. This is the nut that was on here before, and I just feel like, you know, it's so ugly and nasty. Got rid of it, and I found one of my stainless steel nuts, and I just put that in its place. In case the owner looks here, you can see how nice and clean everything looks. And I even grabbed this plastic cover and threw it in my parts washer. You can see how nice and clean it looks. Of course, it should be one piece, but it's broken off right there. It's not that big of a deal. This is already bolted down, so it's nice and solid. It's not going anywhere. We go ahead, pop that in just like that. Looks super clean, really nice. So at this point, all I have to do is connect the ground side to the battery, and the truck should start. We are good to go. Let's go ahead and try to crank it over. You know, when I said some hack would have just cut that end off and, you know, crimped the new one on and send it on its way, they wouldn't. Honestly, they wouldn't even have done that. It would have went to AutoZone and bought one of those cheap universal battery posts and cut the wire and just bolted it down just like that. You guys all know what I'm talking about. That's exactly what they would have done, instead of going through all this trouble just to fix a loose battery post. There you go, just as I expected. Sets right up. Let's try it again. Good as new. All right, owner could come pick up this turd. I've got this 2000 Accord here. Just came in on tow hook because brakes. So the rear brakes are grinding, metal on metal. The guy said it got so bad that it pushed the piston out of the caliper, so the pedal went all the way to the floor. Obviously the pads were missing, so yeah, it was that bad. Now I did the front brakes in this car a few months ago, and I told him, hey, your rear pads are very low. It needs to get the pads done very soon, and preferably even the rotors. And they just kept ignoring it. It's a young girl. She just kept on driving, and it got to this point, right? So pedal went all the way to the floor. There's no more brake pads. The piston came out of the caliper. Her dad buys the parts, and he attempts to do the job himself, but he can't get out the little screw that holds the rotor to the hub. We all know that screw, right? So he has to put everything back together, and he gets it towed over here for me to fix it. That's unfortunate. So he told me to just, when I get it out, go ahead and leave that screw off of the car, which I can agree, you know. So next time, if it needs to get done, he can do it himself. And let's go ahead and knock this out. It just sucks that he had to get it towed over here and put everything back together, all because of a tiny little screw. Well, that's one way to fix a muffler. All right, so you can see the mess that we have here. You see the rotor's destroyed. I'm gonna assume this is the side that's getting the caliper, but I guess I'll find out. You can see one of the screws is missing. We still have the other one in place right there, so we got to fight to get that one out apparently. First thing I noticed is the stabilizer link is disconnected from the sway bar. You can see it's not attached, and it's also disconnected on the other side because I'm able to move the bar up and down like this. But they are not concerned with any of that. It's just here for brakes, and that's it. So let me go ahead and knock this out. Alright guys, so as you can see, I put my vice grips to hold on to the rotor so that when I'm trying to take the screw out, the rotor doesn't rotate. Of course, you don't want to do this to a rotor you're planning on reusing. But here we got the air hammer. And with our tool to remove these screws, let's see if it'll come out. And there we have it. She was definitely in there pretty damn tight. There was no way in hell you're gonna get this screw out with anything else besides this tool. I mean, sure, there's other ways, you know, drilling it, cutting it, but with just taking it out normally, you need a tool like this. And yeah, so owner said don't put the screws back on it, just leave it off. That's what we're gonna do. And the rotor's already loose. I could already see it moving just a little bit. So let's continue to take all this apart. The caliper on this side honestly looks to be fine, and when I check the box of the new part, yeah, of course, the caliper that we have is not for the rear right side, it's for the rear left side. So if we come over here and you look on the inside of the rim, it definitely looks moist, like there was brake fluid leaking. You can see how bad all of this looks inside of here. So this is the side that he said that the piston came out of the caliper. So I got the rotor off. As you can see, there goes the back side of it right there. And unfortunately, we have a bad wheel bearing. This thing's pretty loud, and you can see how it just spins freely. So it's not here for this, obviously, so we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to go ahead and get the brakes done. I'll bring it up to the owner, but I feel like it's going to be one of those situations where it's going to be in one ear, out the other. You know, she's a young girl. She just keeps driving it until the wheels fall off. And if we ever do see this car back for the wheel bearings, it's either going to get towed in, or they're just going to drive it over here with the wheel practically falling off of the car. And that's just something that young drivers just have to learn and experience for themselves, that if you stay proactive about things, it's generally cheaper to get your problem fixed rather than keep pushing it off, and at the end of the day it just ends up costing you more money. So the rear right side is pretty much all knocked out. I did have to take the bracket off and sandblast it because there was just way too much rust, and it was basically pinching the pads, so that's not good. It's all cleaned up, everything's perfect now, moves freely just how it should. Slide pins are still good on this caliper, so this side's all set. Let's go ahead and move on to the other side, the side that actually needs the new caliper. You can see the piston on the caliper being pushed all the way out. That's why the fluid came out, the pedal went all the way to the floor. And then when he couldn't get it, I told him, you know what, just put everything back together, get it towed over here. So he did. And taking a closer look at this, he put the brake pad on backwards. Not that it matters, of course, it's completely irrelevant, but I thought it was funny. So yeah, that's how it came in. Anyway, let's go ahead and get all this garbage out of here. And let's look at this screw. This one is definitely a little bit more mangled up. You could tell he was trying to get this one out. Good thing is there's only one to get out again. So let's see if this will come out with the air hammer, or if we have to try something else. And by the way, something else I noticed is, look how thin this rotor is. It should not be that thin. As you can see, I got the rotor off. The air hammer took off that screw with no issues at all. Honestly, I'd argue that the screw on the other side was more difficult to remove. So if he couldn't get out this side, there's no way in hell he was going to get out the other side. But where am I at? Where am I? Okay, so as far as the wheel bearing, I mean, it's not perfect, but it definitely seems like it's in better condition on the other side. Now, as far as the rotor, let me go ahead and show you guys what I was talking about, how thin it is. Do you see that difference? And this is the inside that the piston of the caliper was just rubbing on with no brake pad. As you can see, I got the new caliper on. Everything is put back together. And I just finished bleeding the system. And I only had to bleed at this one wheel. I didn't have to go around to the other wheels. But the pedal doesn't go to the floor anymore. It actually builds up pressure right up top. And we have a nice firm pedal right now. So I'm just gonna go ahead and confirm that there is absolutely no leaks back there at that banjo bolt, and that'll be it. All right, so the brake pedal feels great, car stops just fine, but man, this car sounds rough. Just when you start to get up to speed, you could definitely hear that wheel bearing. And then there's a crazy vibration that just comes over the entire cabin. I'm pretty sure all of the engine mounts are just destroyed on this thing. Yeah, so you know, I understand why they don't want to put a lot of money into the car, because, well, I don't know, it's like a double-sided sword. Well, first of all, you could figure, you know, it's a teenager's first car, you know, and you know it's all run down into the ground. You just want it drivable for point A to point B. But then the other argument would be, it's your daughter. You want the car as safe as possible, you know, fix it, put her in a safe car. But you could go two ways with that argument. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and park it. I'm done. It came here for brakes because the pedal was going all the way to the floor, caliper was destroyed, and all of that is fixed. Any other issues going on with the car, it's not here for any of that. So the brakes work. I'm done. So I'm in this 2016 Chevy Cruise. This car, I looked at it a few months ago. It needs a turbo. The turbo still hasn't been replaced on it. But now a new problem popped up where the car barely wants to run. It's stumbling really bad. So the owner went to the dealer to price out a turbo, and parts and labor come out to like over $2,000, which is pricey. You know, I told him, why all of a sudden do you want to change the turbo when I told you this turbo has been bad for a while? And he's like, well, look at what it's doing. So it's like hesitating. And let me go ahead and start it up right now. And it just randomly turns off. It barely wants to run. Not sure if you guys can hear that, but it wants to shut off, okay? So anyway, I looked at it and I told him, this is a separate problem from your bad turbo. This is going to be something else. So looked up some codes here, and he has a few codes here, but the main one I'm concerned about that wasn't here before was a exhaust camshaft position system performance, the very first code. Then you can see we have a few other codes like mass airflow sensor, crankshaft cam position not plausible, blah blah blah, right? Oxygen sensors, airflow system performance. Anyway, it's not throwing a code for the intake side, only for the exhaust side. But here's the thing, these things rely on, like the solenoids for the camshafts, they rely heavily on oil pressure and oil, clean oil. The owner's not too well with doing oil changes on the car, so that's my first guess. And in fact, we went ahead and ordered, shooting the parts cannon at it, all right, we went ahead and ordered the intake and exhaust camshaft solenoids, original GM parts. And we also have oil and an oil filter here, because we're just gonna get it all done at the same time. I got some mess to clean up, as you can see. Let me get a rag right now, but I pulled off the exhaust side only. I haven't done the intake side because the exhaust side is the one that's throwing the code. And guys, here goes our smoking gun. You can see the little screen thing is dislodged from where it belongs. It actually belongs down here, and see how loose it is. Not only that, if we look inside of this window right there, you can see a small metal portion of that screen is wedged inside of the solenoid. So if you had no other options and you're in a pinch and you had no new part to replace this with, you try to pull out that little wedge and you take off that broken screen and you put the thing back in the car, most likely would still work. But we have new parts. This is not the first time I've seen these fail like this, where that little screen just rips off and then a piece of it gets wedged inside of the solenoid. This is my second time seeing this, and again, another Chevy, same exact problem. So let's go ahead, pop in both of the new solenoids, and this thing's gonna be running a million times better. So here goes both of our actuators, and we got the classic box inside of a box. Now I believe these are the same part number, because when I was on Rock Auto's website, there was no intake or exhaust. It's just you know, variable valve timing actuators, and that's it. There was none of that. So the parts do look to be identical. All right, so I got both of the new solenoids installed, and here goes the other one right there. Now some of you are wondering, well, why didn't you try to, use the scanner to determine that they were bad and blah blah blah, or one of them was bad? But the thing is, honestly guys, we all know these things are just so easy to get to. It doesn't take much time to just pop the one that's suspected bad, pop it out and see if there's something physically wrong with it. Why am I going to spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes looking at my scanner trying to make heads or tails when it only takes 1 minute to pop this thing out? And if you physically see it damaged, it's a done deal. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. Anyway, those are the new ones. They're installed. Here goes the old ones, and here's a better idea of what I was talking about. So this is the one that came out the intake side. You could see how everything should be, and then look how the damaged one is. See this part just kind of floating around here? It should be right inside of here, just like this one right here. All right, so I've gone ahead and cleared the check engine light. The car's been running for like 1 minute, and as you can see, the check engine light came right back. But like I said, this car has other problems going on. But the thing is, it's running perfectly smooth, super smooth, like no problems at all. It was not doing this before. I'm pretty confident that if you were to take this out for a test ride, which we're gonna do, it would drive just fine. Will it have all of its power like if the turbo was working? No, it wouldn't. But before, the way it was not drivable. The engine was buckling so bad, and it would turn off every few minutes. The car wasn't drivable, and now it is going to be. So I'm sure the owner's going to be really happy with this, because this was a simple repair, so labor cost is not going to be expensive. So I'm out driving the Chevy. I still got to reset the oil life, but it's actually drivable now. Before it wasn't. You couldn't move this car, but it doesn't drive great. Like I said, check engine light came on, and we are getting like map sensor performance codes. And what's funny is last night Ivan over at Pine Hollow, he just put out a video yesterday of a similar engine, turbo, and he showed us something in the video, something I didn't even know about, that's a common issue with the PCV system, and how the diaphragm pretty much just gets destroyed. So that's something to look into on this car, because that could be a similar issue that's going on this one. It may need a entire intake manifold. But as you can see, it's raining outside, and with the CRX taking up the garage that I can't move it at the moment, I'm pretty much done working for today. I'm not going to be digging into the extra problems that this car has, because I'll just be getting soaked out here. But the car's actually drivable now, and the owner could drive it around if he wants, but it definitely needs more work.